So we're over in Bury today at M66 Commercials. We've got a DAF XF model year 17. We've got a couple of faults with it today to look at. AEBS, lane departure warning system. So we'll get into this now. Right, what we're dealing with today. Let's have a look. So we've got a lane departure system malfunction. Coolant level low, that's always fun. AEBS malfunction. And battery monitoring malfunction. Right, let's get jaltest from Eclipse Diagnostics plugged in and see where we're going from here. Alright, let's get the VCI plugged in. So what we're dealing with, powers, ground, CAN, brilliant. Communication on that. If you want these, they're on the website. I'll leave a link below. So my Starlink's all up and running. We'll jump on jaltest and we'll do auto VIN identification. So we want model year 17. We know we've got faults with lane departure warning system. We'll jump into LDWS 3. We'll see what faults we've got in this. Fault code reading. Lane departure warning system 3 ECU now. We've got 2 fault codes stored here that are active. Loudspeaker left and loudspeaker right, open circuit. This is referring to the speakers in the door cards. So we'll go and check that the radio works first. But I think this will be attributed to the mute box which is in the dash. jaltest calls it a muffler, but I'll just show you what that looks like. There you go. So we'll be getting to that too. I'll show you the location of that in a minute on OEM RMI, which has been supplied by Eclipse Diagnostics. So if we go to OEM RMI, next, so we want 2018 XF BH. That's all I care about really. So we're in our chassis number now and we want to know where our mute box is for the lane departure warning system. So we'll go to system information. We'll go to systems. And we know it's called a mute box or muffler on jaltest. So we'll put mute in. See what comes up. There we go. Location mute box D455. I'll just zoom in here. So you can see this bracket here. There's a little box behind this bracket. That bracket is what holds the back of these cubby holes by the steering wheel in. So we'll have a look at that as well. But first of all, we need to go and see if the speakers are working. Right. Does the radio work? That's the main thing here. So there was a 5 amp fuse in the radio fuse, which should have been a 20 amp fuse, but now we've got the radio on. So the next question is, do the speakers work? So we'll just have a look for any old radio station. So they're working. It's working there, and it's working there. Now we know that the radio's working, the speakers are both working, so the functionality is correct. It must be an issue with the mute box, so we'll have to get these out and get in there next. We'll get to this mute box ECU, whip these out. So, where is it? In this big bundle of wires. It is that box there. So we'll just throw you in there. We'll just have this ECU out, I think. So this is your mute box ECU. All this does is, like I say, interrupts the volume or whatever's playing on the CD player radio and makes a buzzing sound through the speakers to say, oh, you've gone on the white line there, or oh, you've drifted into the centre of the road there. So that's your mute box ECU for lane departure warning system. What we could have done is gone to actuate components and then we're presented with left and right loudspeaker. Here we could have tested the actual component. As you can see, it's in a deactivated state at the moment and we could have activated it, but we're not presented with any noise from the speakers to say that the lane departure warning system mute box is working correctly. So I'm definitely saying it now needs a mute box. So we need one of these. Right, what's our next fault? So next up is AEBS. That old chestnut. So we'll go into AEBS now. What faults have we got in this today? Fault code reading. And we're presented with driver activation demand for AEBS system signal out of range. What the hell does that mean? Well, it's a CAN message. 5681-19. What's 5681-19? So if we go back into OEM RMI, this time we're going to use the diagnostic menu. And we'll have 5681-19. AEBS on and off switch, not available from cabin switch module. Now, isn't that a bit more of a better description than what we had in jaltest? So what this will say now is there's an issue with the MUX, most probably. MUX switch ID LIN signal is not communicated correctly to the cabin switch module. So now we've got something to go off. We can go into the cabin switch module and try and bring back the MUX switch ID from the AEBS switch. So all our switches on a DAF on model year 17 onwards are fitted with what's called a LIN system, local interconnect network. It's a poor man's CAN, basically. It runs on one communication wire. It's 12 volts, but this also means that all these switches here can be moved around in groups, A, B, C, etc. So I could take a switch from here, such as the interior light switch, which doesn't work, and I could move it over here somewhere down by the steering wheel. Then you've got to re-establish communication with the switches, and it traces the ID number basically. So, but it's saying this AEBS switch isn't working. So what we'll do now is jump back onto jaltest. So I'm going to come out of AEBS because it's not an AEBS fault. It's more of a cabin switch module. So we want CSM, cabin switch module. We'll connect to this now. And from here we'll go to measurements. And from here we should be presented with all the switches in the vehicle. We'll just select all just so I can show you all these different switches. So we've got 7 pages here of different switch groups, etc. And there we go. AEBS connection switch not available. There's a lot of these that are not available actually. Well, none of these are available. So we might have an issue here with the cabin switch module. Let's see if some of these switches work. Does the regeneration one work? No. Does the hill hold button work? No. Does the lift axle button work? No. That's why the cabin interior light switch doesn't work. Right, so now we know we've got a cabin switch module fault with all the switches. So all the switches aren't working, basically. So we know we can talk to the cabin switch module because we're in the ECU. So it's got powers, grounds, and communication, but none of the switches are working. So if we go to system checks and do auto detection, we'll see if this works. So an error occurred during this test. It didn't find any switches whatsoever. So all I'm going to do now is unplug the cabin switch module and plug it back in. So we need some location information for this particular component. So this time we'll just use the cabin switch module wiring diagram on jaltest because this should have some sort of location information in the diagram as well. So as you can see here in the diagram for our cabin switch module, this is our power in here from fuse E770. We've got a end resistor here which communicates with VECU, and then everything else is all our LIN branches. If we click on the ECU in the middle here, this is our switch module. These are the LIN branches I was on about, 1, 2, 3, etc. And this is our location information. Again, behind them cubby holes in the steering wheel, and it's behind that bracket again. So I guess we're going back into the dash to find this now. That's where our ECU was before. So yet again, I've got to wrestle in here to get this ECU out. Or maybe we could just unplug it. Luckily, they just clip in. So this is our cabin switch module ECU. As you can tell, she's really not happy that I've just unplugged that. That's the part number there for that. So now I've unplugged this, I'll just plug it back in. Hopefully it resets it. With our cabin switch module now plugged back in, we'll reconnect back to it on jaltest, and we'll go to system checks. Can we run auto switch identification again? No. Have we got any comms with any of the switches? None available. So none of the switches are working. So what we'll do is we'll disconnect all the LIN branches, I think, and we'll go from there. Now, I've flicked all these LIN branches out, and something has just happened. See, this switch lights up now. That lights up. Now, the interior light's working. So that means, does our DPF regeneration switch work now? No. So me moving these switches out has moved the wiring about, and potentially the wires rubbed through in the back here. So we'll try and bring our switches back to life now by reinitializing them on jaltest, and we'll see what happens from there, I think. So if we go into measurements and back to our switches again, let's have a look what we got here. Work light switch. Well, that's a work light switch. So there we go. That's going from inactive to active. So we'll see if we can bring all these other switches back online now then. So we'll go to system checks and we'll try and check if all these switches are working again. Still an error occurred during the test. So if we go into fault code reading, we'll just see if we've got any faults. Right, so now we've got a fault in here. Switch module, link communication with component is not okay. Question is, which component is it? Well, it could be any of these, couldn't it? Switch 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. That's 1, 1. What's 1, 2? That's that one. What's 1, 3? So it's saying it's in this row here is the fault somewhere. We'll just disconnect all these and start plugging them in one by one and see what happens, I think. Right. So we know this switch works. We know that switch works. And now our turn the reverse alarm buzzer light works. And do we have central locking? Yeah. So the central locking works now. So with this bank of switches now out, I'm going to plug this top one in and we'll try and run our auto switch identification basically. So we'll go to system checks, cab switch identification, and we'll run this and see if we get error or whether it starts picking up switches now. Well, that's always a good sound. So there we go. Now it's run the test. It's told me what switches are available and what switches aren't available. So the next question is, does this switch work? So this switch works now. This bank is working. The next question is, can I turn the AEBS off now? Yes. So AEBS is able to be disabled, fix that AEBS fault. But the next question is, which switch is crashing the LIN system? Let's keep going. So me plugging one of these switch banks in then has shut the LIN down. These aren't working anymore now, so let's have that one out. See, this switch isn't working now. So now we know it's the switch bank or switches that are causing the problem. We need to disassemble this and see if it's the holder or which switch it is. All these switches do is just plug in. See, there's only 3 wires up here, or 3 terminals I should say. Again, powers, ground and LIN. And the same with this one. Powers, ground and LIN. And they just fit into these at the back, into this holder, and these literally come in and out. Again, all these switches are individual. See, they've got different part numbers on. That's because they've all got individual IDs. And that's why I say you could take a switch from here, put it up there, re-establish connection with all the switches, and it would recognize that this switch ID had moved from this column to over here. So we'll now plug this in, see if this switch is still working. So it's not the holder, and it's not the wire going to it. Now, is it this lift axle switch? See, the light's gone out. It's a lift axle switch. So if we get rid of that, that comes back on. We plug in the axle dump switch. Light stays on. So the customer needs a lift axle switch. This is the problem, and this is why it knocked out all of his switches and caused an AEBS malfunction. There we go. So that was our cabin switch module issue. While we're waiting for some parts, we'll get on to our BEM, or Battery Energy Monitoring. Not Battery Supply Control Unit, it's Battery Energy Monitoring. Let's see if we can connect to this now. Oh, connecting. Disconnecting. Oh dear. Right, let's go and have a look at this. I'll tell you what we'll do first though. We'll just have a look at a diagram for it. So this is our battery energy monitoring system. It's actually a link lead ECU. I'll just show you the picture now. So there you go. So it just goes between our positive and negative on the batteries in the middle. And it's got 4 wires, which will be powers, grounds and CAN. As you can see here, pin 1, monitoring ground, batteries 1 and 2, pin 2, frame CAN, pin 3, frame CAN, pin 4, power supply. Right, let's go and get into this. So all this infill has had to come off just to get to the batteries. Why they couldn't have put these batteries down the back like a normal person, I'll never know. But the ECU we're looking for is this. This is your BEM ECU, or battery energy monitoring. If we unplug it, you'll see there's a slight bit of corrosion there, but nothing mega, and somebody's managed to break the plug on it already. So we'll just test what we've got going on here, but I bet you it's the ECU. So all I'm going to do now is just use my breakout leads, which are available from Truck Tech UK website, and I'll link these up now between the ECU and the plug, and we can then test what's going on at our banana plugs. So let's get this plugged into there. So now I've got my breakout lead plugged into between our BEM ECU and our plug on the chassis harness there. We'll go red and black, which is our powers and grounds. So we'll just put that in black and this one in red. And then we'll turn the multimeter on and see what we've got. I might have put them in backwards, but we've got 23.6 volts there, so that's got powers and grounds to the ECU. What have we got on our CAN? So I'll just go to an earth here, just slap that on the battery. We'll put this in this yellow, which I think is CAN low, and we've got 2.4 volts there. And if we go to CAN high, which is our green one, we've got 2.6 volts there. So voltage wise, it's communicating. Powers and grounds, it's got them. I'll just turn the ignition off. What we'll do now is a resistance check. So we'll just pop this in yellow and green, which is our CAN high and CAN low, and we'll just set this to resistance. So we've got this now in CAN high and CAN low, and we've got 60 ohms. So there's nothing wrong with this frame CAN. All our measurements are within DAF specifications. The problem here is the ECU. So that's our BEM ECU part number there. Now we just need one of these. We can get an ECU for this, program that while I'm here. Hopefully the customer gives us the go ahead and I can do this. So we've got a new battery energy monitoring ECU here. We'll get this fitted and then get onto jaltest to get this programmed. And also we have a new lift axle switch to go into our link system in the dash. And we'll get this fitted in a minute too. Right, this is our link lead, so we've got to get this off. More cable ties somewhere, not the best of access. So I'll have this terminal off the battery. Oh god, that was tight. Right, let's get this off. And then we want the other end off. So that's our old one. This is our new one. At least we've got a clip on it now, unlike the old one. With our new BEM ECU fitted now, we can plug the wiring back in and we'll jump onto jaltest and see what's going on. So now we've got our battery energy monitoring ECU or link lead fitted to the batteries. We'll see if we can connect to it now. Is it going to connect? Yeah, so there you go. We're in the ECU now. We couldn't get in the ECU before. But if we go to system data and go to ECU data, again, we've got Y. So this needs programming now. So we'll get onto jaltest. So while we're waiting for jaltest to program that battery energy monitoring ECU, we'll plug in our lift axle switch. So now we've fitted our new lift axle switch, we'll go to cabin switch module again and we'll relearn the switch. We'll go to auto detection, we'll press continue, and hopefully this will find our new lift axle switch. Continue. Have we got any faults in this now? There's no faults in the memory. Let's go and see if it works. So we'll just try our lift axle switch now. Well, that went down. Does it go up? So we've got our new mute box. We'll get this fitted now in there and hopefully it fixes the open circuit for the speakers. Right, wish me luck. Right, that's our mute box ECU fitted. Has it solved the problem? No. Well, that's odd. We fitted a new mute box and we've still got a lane departure system malfunction, even though there's sound coming through the speakers and the sound comes from the radio, it gets interrupted by the mute box and then goes to the speakers. So there's definitely something funny going on here. I think I'll just whip this speaker grill off. Let's have a look what's going on here. Why is it always me that gets the stupid jobs? Well, that's not a DAF speaker. So, it's not a DAF speaker, obviously. Well, this isn't DAF wiring. That's the DAF wiring. So what the customer's done here is bypassed all the DAF wiring. So the reason the speakers are working and we can hear sound out of them through the radio is because they've bypassed the DAF wiring to the speakers. And the reason we've got a lane departure warning fault, because we have actually got an open circuit, it's the fact that there's no speakers on the end of the factory wiring. And the reason I went for the mute box ECU, because the radio was making a noise through the speakers. I did never in a million years think that the guy had actually bypassed all the DAF wiring to the speakers. So that's the fault. What I've done here is I've just wired in a DAF LF speaker into the factory harness, and now we'll go to actuate components, right loudspeaker, and activate. All I'm going to do, rather than mess up some sort of whatever the driver's got going on here, I will wire in some separate speakers into this circuit to bypass, or I suppose reinstate, the lane departure warning systems. So this is the speaker. I've just pulled the terminals off, and all I'm going to do for now is just stick them in here. So I'll go and do the other side now, and then we'll turn the ignition on and see if the fault codes are gone. Right, so I've got these little speakers bypassed in either side of the factory wiring now. Let's see what happens if we turn the ignition on. Well, that's still going to be programmed. Oh, well, that's good, isn't it? Brilliant. Right, let's go and have a look on jaltest. So we'll go back into lane departure warning system now, see what effect this has had on the fault codes with our new little speakers. Well, they've both gone to inactive. Brilliant. So that solved the circuit, fixed our open circuit, and made me look like an idiot. So now we know we've fixed this, we can just clear our fault codes out of this. And we'll go and fit the speakers into the door cards. So we'll just cut these off. And these. So that's our speaker wire done now. We better go and do the other one. So we'll just hide our double-sided taped little speaker up here somewhere. We'll put his aftermarket speaker and wiring back in the truck now, and then put the speaker grill on, and that should be it. So the only issue now I have to deal with is the battery monitoring malfunction, which we'll get onto jaltest with now. So as you can see, jaltest Central Services are now programming the battery energy monitoring system. So now Emmanuel's done programming our battery energy monitoring ECU. We'll just connect to this, and we'll go to system data, ECU data, and now we have a VIN number. And if we go to the dash, the only fault we've got on here now is an issue with the daytime running lights, and that's because the light's missing. So there we go, job done.